For the past few months, the Billy Joe Saunders fans, not all of them, but most of them, have been ridiculing Demetrius Andrade. They've been calling him a paper champion because, in their words, he won a vacant belt against an unknown opponent. Well, today, Billy Joe Saunders in his press conference announced that he's swerving the Demetrius Andrade fight and instead stepping up to 168 to fight for, you guessed it, a vacant belt against an unknown opponent. Talk about irony. You see, this is why you have to be careful about what comes out your mouth, because it may just come back to haunt you. It may just come back to bite you on the backside. And that's exactly what's happened here to the Billy Joe Saunders fans. Now, I'm not even trying to criticize Billy Joe Saunders at this juncture, because I don't really pay attention to what Billy Joe Saunders says on social media on a regular basis. So I don't know whether he was calling Andrade a paper champion or not. I've got no idea. But I certainly know that his fans were. And so I have to tell his fans a few home truths and show them the irony of this situation. What are they going to say to this? Are they going to put their hands up and say, okay, fair enough. If Billy Joe beats this unknown guy, he's a paper champion too? Of course they're not going to say that. They will inevitably demonstrate the outrageous bias and absurd hypocrisy that they always demonstrate. They're going to make excuses for it and try and make out, oh, this is different though. Well, yeah, it is a little bit different. You know, one way that it's different? When Andrade didn't fight Billy Joe for the WBO belt, when Andrade was a challenger, that was because Billy Joe failed a PED test. That wasn't Andrade's fault. That was Billy Joe's fault. So Andrade didn't swerve that fight. But in this instance here, when Billy Joe was the challenger for Andrade's belt, Billy Joe did swerve it. Andrade never failed no PED test. Billy Joe swerved the fight to go fight for a vacant title against an unknown opponent. That was his choice. It wasn't Andrade's choice to fight for a vacant belt. That's where the situation is different. But again, are the Saunders fans going to put their hands up and say, okay, fair enough. We criticized Andrade. We called him a paper champ. And we're going to call Billy Joe a paper champ if he beats this guy for a vacant belt too. You know they're not going to do that. That's just not how they roll. I don't want to say it's all Billy Joe fans, because there are some decent Billy Joe fans. But there's certainly a very large section of his fans who behave in this unbelievably biased and laughably hypocritical way, where they go around pointing fingers and accusing everybody else of being biased when they themselves are among the most biased fans in the entire boxing world. It's absurd, but you come to expect this from a lot of Billy Joe fans. So let me know what you guys think about this in the comment section below. And for those of you who are curious, this is the guy who Billy Joe will be fighting for the vacant WBO super middleweight world title. His name is Shefat Isufi. He is a German-based Serb. He's got a record of 27-3-2, 20 KOs. There are not many names you'll recognize on this resume. I tried to look at the guys that he'd lost to see if I recognize them, and I don't. Apart from the last loss that he had, which was back in 2015, to Darius Sek. Some of you may remember that Darius Sek was an Anthony Yarde opponent. So this guy lost to an Anthony Yarde opponent. He was stopped by an Anthony Yarde opponent back in 2015, Darius Sek. To be fair, one thing I can say in Isifu's favor, if you will, is the fact that he does appear to be a big guy. Billy Joe moving up from middleweight, and Billy Joe ain't the biggest middleweight. he's fighting a guy who normally campaigns at light heavyweight. You see, he turned pro at 186 pounds back in 2010. He's been up as high as 195. I don't know what kind of shape he's in for these kind of fights, but it says here that he's only 5'11". So maybe he wasn't in particularly great shape at that weight. Maybe he's really muscular. I don't know. I've never seen him fighting and I have to go do my research on it. But he does appear to be a significantly bigger guy than Billy Joe. And his record suggests, okay, it's against low tier opposition, the wins he's had, but his record suggests he does have some kind of power there. So I do have to say that in all fairness, he does appear to be a pretty big guy and has mainly campaigned at light heavyweight. So, that's going to be an obstacle for Billy Joe to overcome. But in terms of the level that he's operated at, it appears to be a very low level. And it's pretty extraordinary, really, that they've managed to maneuver this guy, whoever his promoter is, has managed to maneuver this guy into a position where he can fight for a vacant world title. That's pretty extraordinary, but not unprecedented. We know this takes place a lot of the time in boxing. I'm sure many of you may remember when Matthew Hatton fought Canelo for the vacant WBC light middleweight world title when Matthew Hatton had never even fought at 154 pounds before. So, yeah, let me know what you guys think about this in the comment section below. Do you know this fighter? Will he give Billy Joe any issues at all? Did Billy Joe call Demetrius Andrade a paper champion? Was it not just his fans who were saying that? Are those words now coming back to haunt Billy Joe as well as his fans? To bite Billy Joe in the butt as well as his fans? Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. I rate Billy Joe as a fighter. I've always thought he's very skilled. And there was actually a period where I felt like the fans were being unduly harsh on Billy Joe. Yeah. After he beat Andy Lee, there was a period there where I felt like the fans were just being a bit too harsh and it was a little farcical. Them coming out saying he's a coward and he don't want this fight and he don't want that fight. I've never felt Billy Joe's a coward. I've always felt that he definitely lacks discipline. And his promoter, Frank Warren, has been through some very tough times financially over the past few years. And those two factors combined, in my opinion, may have resulted in Billy Joe's inactivity and certain fights not taking place. But Billy Joe's heart, for me, I've never questioned that. I do believe he has heart, and I'm sure he's going to be very ambitious at 168 pounds if he manages to get this belt. I'm sure he's going to want maybe the winner of Eubank Jr. versus James DeGale, potentially. There are also other fights out there. We'll have to see how he looks in this fight at 168. He's obviously small for the weight. Wasn't a particularly big middleweight. He makes middleweight much easier now since hooking up with Dominic Ingle. In fact, him and Dominic Ingle have said in the fairly recent past that he could actually make 154. He'd be a big light middle, but he could make 154 now that he's applying himself correctly in the gym, sticking to an appropriate diet, etc. So, I rate Billy Joe as a fighter, but his fans leave a lot to be desired when it comes to their behavior, with their outrageous bias and their outrageous hypocrisy. That's why the irony of this situation, Billy Joe swerving the Andrade fight to fight for a vacant belt against an unknown opponent, is so funny to me. And, some people are saying, well, he did it because he didn't want to get 25% against Demetrius Andrade. Well, Demetrius Andrade was going to get 25% against Billy Joe, but he didn't swerve the fight. He was only going to get 25%. He still took it. He didn't, look for a vacant belt elsewhere. No, he took the fight. The reason that fight didn't happen is because Billy Joe failed a PED test. Nothing to do with Andrade. But this situation is to do with Billy Joe. He's not fighting Andrade now because he swerved it. I'm not saying he's scared of Andrade. I certainly believe that he respects Andrade, and I certainly believe that he saw Andrade as a very tough fight. Particularly now Andrade has had a couple fights in the interim and managed to get his sharpness back because he was coming back from a long period of inactivity. So I certainly think Billy Joe sees Andrade as a threat, no doubt. Contrary to what many of Billy Joe's fans have been telling me in my Facebook boxing group, oh, Billy Joe destroy Andrade, and most of them are acting like it's not even a competitive fight, which I always found to be absurd. I always felt like it would be a highly competitive fight. But I favored Andrade mainly because of the fact that it would be in the United States, the fight, if it had taken place. Andrade has, regained his match fitness, and they're both slick southpaws. It's going to be nip and tuck. I slightly favor Andrade with the home advantage, the fact he's taller, and they both fight in a very similar fashion. He's taller, he's got longer arms. In the nip and tuck fight, the guy who's taller with longer arms and maybe a bit more athleticism might just edge it. That's why I was looking at Andrade, but I certainly never saw it as some kind of one-sided mismatch. But that's how a lot of the Saunders fans saw it. Like Saunders was just going to come in and beat the living daylights out of Andrade. It wasn't even going to be competitive. Well, if it wasn't going to be competitive, if it was going to be that easy, he should have gone ahead with it. Right? Should have gone ahead with it. Anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. It's happening, I'm out. Join me on Patreon. I upload a minimum of 2 podcasts every single week, covering a wide variety of controversial topics, as well as live stream Q&A sessions. Take a look on screen right now at some of the podcasts I've produced so far. For just $3 a month, the equivalent of about £2 a month, you get access to all my new podcasts and my entire back catalogue of past podcasts, including my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. You can listen on your computer or on your smartphone or tablet by downloading the Patreon app from the Google Play Store or the App Store for free. The Patreon app also allows you to download each podcast in MP3. For less than the price of a cup of coffee, you get access to dozens of hours of exclusive content. It's easy to sign up, there's no contract, and you can cancel at any time. So come and join our community of free and critical thinkers by signing up with me here on Patreon today.